On tomorrow's show, we'll talk about it too. In the meantime, it is time for the pressure rankings.
For me, it was a self-imposed pressure.
Was I under pressure? No.
Yeah, they're under pressure. Everyone's under pressure.
OTB AM's pressure rankings with Gillette.
And the big pressure.
Where are we starting, Owen?
Let's run through these 5 to 1. At number 5 in the pressure rankings this week is Carlo Ancelotti. Everton have lost 3 games on the bounce in the Premier League. I know they've had suspensions. I know they've had injuries to key players, but they need to turn things around pretty quickly. After the international break, they've got Fulham, they've got Leeds, they've got Burnley, and they should hopefully have a full complement of players back at their disposal. If they don't get 7 points out of that at a very minimum, then their title challenge probably falls away. Once that falls away, will the top 4 challenge fall away with it? Given the money they've spent last summer and the start to the season they had, that might have been their target. So I'm officially putting him in there this morning, a slight bit of pressure on Carlo Ancelotti. At number 4, we've got Mikel Arteta. Arsenal haven't scored a goal from open play since the 4th of October. Yeah, the 4th of October, that game against Sheffield United that they won 2-1. They haven't been able to score goals from open play. They've been terrible going forward. They were lucky to get that penalty against Manchester United last week, and Thomas Partey is now injured. For the first time in his Arsenal career, there is a slight pressure on Mikel Arteta. Can he turn this rut around? After giving Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang this big fat contract, can he get him back in form? Because he's been terrible this season. At number 3, we've got Cork. You've won a championship game in football. You've won a championship game in hurling. So you know what happens next, Cork fans. You have to win the double. It's as simple as that. If you don't win the double, it's a failure of a season. Beat Mayo and Dublin and Tipperary on your way to winning in football, but don't win the hurling, doesn't matter. Failure of a year. Beat all the top teams in hurling, but don't win the football, doesn't matter. Failure of a year. Have to do double. Party like it's 1990. Cork to do the double this year, or else it's a failure of a year. But in at number 2, pressure on Mayo now. Mayo play Galway in a Connacht final a couple of weeks after hammering them in the National League. They then will play either Cork or Tipperary. They've beaten Tipperary in an All-Ireland semi-final before. They will field, Division 1 teams should beat Division 3 teams all the time, right? Isn't that how it works? So they should easily beat Cork into a final against Dublin. Can they end the famine? I hope so. I hope so at this point that Mayo actually do it. There's pressure on them, though. There's no question. They're in at number 2. At number 1 then this morning, we've just gone for Kerry at number 1 this morning. There's pressure on a multitude of things, Ger. There's pressure on Peter Keane, as there is on any manager who's lost a championship game for Kerry, particularly given the style of play. I think there'll be more pressure on him this time next year if Sam Maguire isn't resting in Kerry. There's no real hot seat pressure, so to speak, this winter. It's a quick turnaround, and thankfully from their perspective, there'll be plenty of time to right the wrongs. But do you think, I'm getting the feeling this morning that there's like some sort of pressure on the power rankings, or is there like some opinion? Is there opinions that went haywire or something here?
Yes, there was a suggestion from a listener that you should have put yourself in at number 1. Here it is, Rob Letter. Surely Owen Sheehan is on the pressure rankings himself tomorrow, as his power rankings are a mess after this weekend's results.
The power rankings correctly predicted every single result bar 1 at the weekend. And you know what? I was at least giving credit to Cork last week. I wasn't doing a Pat Spillane on it, who said that Cork would get hammered. Although, Ger, I'm not sure, did you realise this? We did have somebody on OTB who went full Pat Spillane, who said Cork didn't have a chance against Kerry. Do you remember this last week?
No. Well, when I asked Kieran Donaghy yesterday about the level of worry or fear or whatever there might be in Kerry about Cork, he literally said Ara at the start of it. I was like, come on. It was I've always been a glass half empty man, he was essentially saying. And I can understand why, if you're a player, you can't allow yourself to get the disease that Manchester United apparently had with their 1-in-a-row win and be complacent. But Cork having a chance against Kerry this weekend, surely. It's a question on it.
No, I get that it's like you are trying to stoke the embers, and like this is a really interesting part of me feels a little bit sorry for Pat Spillane this morning, because he's woken up and he's probably about 1 million people's profile picture this morning. The comments, Kerry are going to hammer Cork at the weekend, and it's tough for people like him, because he could be like, Kerry have no chance against Cork this weekend, and people are like, you don't know what you're talking about, Pat Spillane. Yerism has gone too far, and he's like, okay, well, maybe Cork aren't that good, and it's like, come on, they're a Division 3 team, and then Pat Spillane is like, go on, so Cork to get hammered this weekend, and then it's like, play up to the crowd, play up to the people who want you to say that Cork are crap, And Pat Spillane lost this game of Yerism chicken, it's fair to say. Thankfully, I did not lose that game last week. And it's the one silver lining. I could so easily have fallen. I could so easily have fallen for your ploy last Tuesday when you said that. When you led me down the garden path, and I was mature enough to say no. Say no, folks, if you don't agree with the opinion being afforded to you.
Okay, well that's fair enough. You did very well last week. You did very well this morning as well, nursing your wounds in public. It's not an easy place to be, and I salute you. I'm very much looking forward to the next 24 hours when you have to reconstitute the power rankings and put Cork ahead of Kerry.
I think so. I think it's going to be hard to ignore that. I talk up championship form so much in these power rankings. I think it would be hypocrisy for me not to do so.
I mean, at the same time, you can definitely make the case that it was a complete fluke, that like the goal was a fluke. The scoring of the goal was a fluke. The missing of the frees by the best players. In the middle of the game, when Kerry finally got into the lead, I was like, this has the bang of the Sligo and Antrim games. This is actually a good thing for Kerry. This is a really good thing, that they're going to squeak through a challenge like this. They'll play badly against Tipperary, and no one will give them a hope in an All-Ireland semi-final. And then all of a sudden, it's Croke Park. Yeah, here we go, let's go.
Exact same thing came into my head, but it was actually only after the defeat. It was, when Diarmuid Murphy made that penalty save to keep Kerry alive.
Yes.
Against Antrim, I was like, after the game, I was like, so this is what it feels like if Diarmuid Murphy didn't make that penalty save, and if Kerry had lost at that point, which kind of makes things worse, because you feel that there could have been a future in the not too distant future. There could have been something for this team, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And to not know what would have happened in 09, there would have been no start of Leah Riggs' game.
Yeah.
Maybe the unintended consequences of that is that Dublin then maybe don't come back to win the 2011 thing. I don't know. Loads of sliding doors here, and maybe this year, Kerry were number 2 in the power rankings for a reason. They're obviously not going to be there tomorrow. I do wonder, though, if you want to be really negative about things, is this whole idea of there being a challenger to Dublin actually a bit of a myth, that anybody from team 2 to 10, for example, can actually beat one another. That on a given day in knockout championship, like if it's Cork, Meath, Donegal, Tyrone, Galway, Mayo, Roscommon, that you actually get good games between these teams, and it's hard to fully predict. Whereas if you throw Dublin into the mix, they probably beat most of those teams 3 times out of 3 at least.
All right.